Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges, and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Allison Mona, founder of Allymona, a health and wellness advocate bringing you years of effective holistic wellness solutions through doTERRA for the whole family. Hi, Allie.
Oh my gosh, Jenn, I'm so happy to be on. Hello.
Hello. And you are currently sitting in Mexico, correct?
I am. Beautiful, sunny Mexico.
So just a quick background story about Allie and I, because I usually do this for my guests. We met back at Dickinson College. Yay to another fellow Red Devils graduate. Oh, you're the second, actually. I did another one. I did another one with Ben Wong, if you remember Ben.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's currently in Hong Kong. Anyway, okay, so let's see. You were a few years ahead of us, and this is going to sound funny because I'm obviously, Taiwanese and I should speak Chinese, but the reason we connected or met was through Chinese class. I got to sit in, you guys were like advanced Chinese, I think. And as a freshman, I got to sit in class with these guys. That's how we met. And then I think one of my fondest memories of you in school was that you're a really diligent student. And then I just always remember you kind of always talking about your then boyfriend, now husband.
That's right.
You guys are doing long distance. So Ron, you guys had like a serious long distance relationship. And then I think you ended up moving to China after college, got married, had 3 kids, and then recently adopted a daughter. And then you did a lot of things in between. You also had a podcast before podcast was a thing. You were so for it. And then, you're a motivational speaker and a wellness advocate, and you did many, many, many other things. So I'm excited for Allie to share with us the moment she decided to be an entrepreneur and all the ups and downs that came with it and how she persevered anyway. So without further ado, I will let Allie take the microphone from here and share her journey with us and how she is now living in Mexico, what brought her there. And I think I last saw you in Shanghai in person. I think it was like 2016.
I think so. I think it was. Maybe before that. Because I don't know if did I have 3 daughters, 4 daughters, or how many girls did I have when I saw you last? It's all a blur, Jenn. It's all a blur.
It's okay. I mean, thanks to social media, we stay on top of each other. And, I get to watch your girls grow from like itsy bitsy to now like one's a teenager, right? So it's nice to, that's the beautiful thing about social media. You get to be a part of that growth, even though you're so far away from each other. But yeah, so Allie, I will let you, share your journey with us because I always find what you've done over the years so inspiring. So I love for you to share how, the different things you were going through and how you got there. And, the subject matter of Curito Connects is about challenges and impactful moments. So
yeah, well, here we go. Okay, so first of all, I'm honored because I haven't been on a podcast in a long time. And you're so right. When I was podcasting, I would reach out to guests to be a podcast guest and they would say, what's a podcast? Honestly, and so I would say, it's kind of like a pre-recorded radio show. And they'd be like, oh, okay. So this is super fun. I haven't been a guest in a very long time since we moved to Mexico. So I'll take you back to, I won't go too far back because we don't have, an eternity, but my husband and I met in Beijing as college kids, and he's from California and I'm from Rhode Island. And we did the long distance thing for 4 years. After I graduated university, I couldn't find work in the US. I had a business degree and a Chinese degree. And the only job I was offered was selling business furniture door to door. Okay. And I think maybe the Dickinson, it wasn't good enough for me. Let's just put it that way. I was like, I'm not doing that. And so I decided to go back to China. I actually had a really hard landing my year abroad in China, and it has nothing to do with China. It was all about me, right? I just didn't have the international experience that would lend well to a successful study abroad. It was not super fun. But I had really put my heart and soul into learning Mandarin. I played Dickinson volleyball my freshman year. And while everyone else was falling asleep coming back from these travel games, I had my whiteboard and I was, using, this is before smartphones, P.S. I'm 38 this year. So I was using the light from like the passing cars to look at my whiteboard and memorize characters, right? Like learning Chinese, learning any language is a sacrifice. So I had really put a lot of time and effort into it. And I thought, all right, I'm going to go back to China. Ron wasn't ready to get married. So I was like, okay, he'll probably kill me for sharing this. But I was like, you got 2 years. If we're not engaged in 2 years, like, what are we doing here? Right. So I said, I'm going to go back to China. And I went and I worked for an oil company, like a petroleum oil company. And I was an English teacher. And now I did not study, teaching, but there was this kind of in-between job that I got that I loved. And they were engineers from PetroChina that were getting ready to go abroad, primarily to Canada, because the northeast of China and Canada have very similar petroleum. And I loved it because I got these adult learners for 3-month semesters and we really could dig in and I learned how to teach. So I remember thinking, what am I doing here? Like I don't know if you've ever had a job, and maybe your listeners, you've had a job, right? And you're like, why am I here? Like, why am I learning this skill? Why am I doing this? Well, that teaching skill will serve me, still continues to serve me today. So did that for a year. Then my contract came up and I didn't want to do that anymore, but I had met a lawyer that I was privately tutoring. And at that time, so I graduated Dickinson in 2006, and now this is 2007, 2008. The crash is imminent. All of my cohort were going back to school to get their master's. And I was like, well, okay, let's go back in debt. Let's go get a master's degree. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be a lawyer. I love human rights. I was going to be a human rights activist lawyer, So I started working with this lawyer and doing crazy things that no 23-year-old American should be doing in a law firm. Just completely like such a China moment, sitting with judges in capital provinces and like crazy things, but it was super fun. And I was learning, my Chinese had gotten really good at that point because I was living in a city with no other foreigners. And their English level was so low in this tiny little village. It's a village of 1 million people, but still very much a village.
Oh yeah, which village were you in?
I was in Panjin, up in the northeast, up in Liaoning.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was like translating texts, like legal texts and that, and so anyway, I was all in. And then one day I was asking Tom, the English name of the lawyer that I was working with, I was lamenting the fact that I was going to go back, get married. I was engaged at the time and then have to stay in the US. I said, it took me so long to love living abroad. I was like, man, and now I'm going to go back and get stuck in America. I just was like, I'm not ready. And he said, well, why don't you ask Ron if he'll move back? And I was like, oh, he'll never move back. And he's like, just ask him. So pre-Skype, pre-Zoom, pre-anything, I sent Ron an email. And I had all the lists laid out of all the reasons why we should move to China. And then the one con was that we were going to be away from family. That was the only con. And he wrote back and he said, well, I'll consider it. And I almost dropped dead, Jen. I just never thought. My husband is Samoan and the oldest of 5 kids. And they just have a really incredibly tight family unit. And I thought, he'll never leave. He'll never go. Anyway, 4 months later, we were married and living in Shanghai. And so we landed in Shanghai with about $2,000 to our name and no jobs and no home. And we had found a home within like the first week. Again, I was fluent in Mandarin, so it wasn't like we were landing completely. It was my home, right? Not Shanghai per se, but China was my home at this point. So within a week, we had found a home. And then within a couple weeks, we both found work at a nonprofit in Shanghai that served expats. So it was called Community Center Shanghai. And they're a wonderful organization that helps expats who are landing in Shanghai. It just kind of softens their blow a little bit, right? Moving to a foreign country can be super difficult. It's super difficult if you don't speak any of the language. And so I was the marketing manager there, and marketing and sales. And then my husband was over family programming, and we loved it. You know, we were 24 and 25 at the time. And we were putting in like 10, 12, 15-hour days, you know, no kids, eating street food at 11 at night, coming home, you know, just so fun, like such an incredibly impactful, incredible work, an incredible team that we worked with. And I got pregnant with my first daughter. And this is 2009. She was born in 2010. And after she was born, I really wanted to go part-time. And I am a career woman at heart. Like, I love to work. And all of a sudden, I had this little tiny thing that I just wanted to be with all the time. And the nonprofit part-time pay wasn't enough. So I made the decision to find another job at an international school, also in marketing, also in Shanghai. And that pay was basically double what I was making. It was basically my full-time pay at nonprofit, just working half-time. So it met the needs. And there I was doing a bunch of things that I thought, what in the world am I doing? You know, I spent hours and hours and months completely recreating their website, learning how to do web design, you know, and I just remember being like, what am I doing here? I learned how to connect with people that I was petrified to connect with, you know, because I was doing lots of outreach and connection with the community. And so I was all of a sudden, you know, talking with CEOs and C-suites, and just I was 26, you know, I was petrified. And you know, learning how to work within teams and learning how to garnish collaboration, you know, and work with really busy people to get things that we needed from the marketing department, right? So all this skill set that happened. And then I had my second daughter and I got sick. So I had some wicked gut stuff happen after the birth of my second daughter. And my friend introduced me to this product. She said, listen, this is what we use to work with my daughter and her gut stuff. Try it. And this stuff had me healed up in about 3 days. And I was like, what is this stuff? And I started to look into the company a little bit, and it was a product from a network marketing company, a US-based network marketing company. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, what? Walls up. Network marketing, MLM, scam, pyramid scheme, products in the garage, you know, just like so much baggage. And I remember thinking, listen, we didn't learn about network marketing in business school, so it can't be legit, right? So I told my friend who gave me this product, I said, I will use it and I will tell it to everybody that I know because it was so transformational. I said, but I am never going to build a network marketing business. And she said, okay. So I started telling people because people needed it, and I started to get paid. And I was like, whoa. I said I wasn't going to do this business. And she's like, but you're doing the business. You're social selling. You know, this is what we do. And so getting some legitimate pay from a network marketing company with products that I loved, it made me, I really had to dig deep and re-question and re-examine all of my preconceived notions about the industry. I mean, network marketing is a multi-trillion-dollar industry a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's huge. It's incredible. I mean, my company alone does multi-billions annually, you know, and I really had to dig in and say, okay, well, just because they're paying me, I'm not going to stop sharing the products. Like I was so anti network marketing that I said, all right, let me figure out where my hangups are.
Yeah.
So I was still working my part-time, but then I started to read and to listen and to interview people and to really dig into the industry. And I thought, wow, you know, this is something that could tick my boxes of still allowing me to work, maximizing the strengths that I bring to the table, and giving me the financial and the time freedom I want to grow my family. Okay.
Mhm.
So here's the pivotal moment, Jen. I was
Oh,
back to work.
are we allowed to talk about which company this is? Like, because there's a lot
Yeah.
of
So
different companies, right? That
uh-huh,
yeah.
sure. I'm happy to. The first company I was with was called Isogenics,
Mm.
and they are health food, meal replacement. They do a lot of weight loss, a lot of strength building, some anti-aging stuff. That was the first company that I was with. And I'll
So that was
explain
the
kind of
one
the
that helped with the gut, like your gut
uh-huh.
issue, right?
That's right. That's right. Um, and I'll explain the evolution of why I'm no longer with Isogenics, throughout the story, but they're a fabulous company. And again, like incredible health products that just really revolutionized how I was taking care of myself in that season. So I am working part-time at this the school. My husband's still in
The
a
center.
nonprofit. Sorry. I
Yeah.
was like, what does he want? What was he in again? Nonprofit. We have 2 daughters at home. Okay. And we have a full-time nanny because you can't really hire someone part-time at that time. And I was still working out of the house half-time. Or yeah, outside of the home half-time. So this one day, I'm at work and Ron and I decide that we're going to go take a lunch break. And there was this fabulous Spanish tapas restaurant right near where we both worked. We worked about 2 blocks away. And at the time, the Spanish tapas set meal was about 12 US dollars a head. And Jen, this was like a splurge. Okay.
Mm.
And we were on the clock. We each had an hour lunch break and took us 15 minutes to get there. And tapas is like a nice, chill, relaxing lunch. We were not feeling relaxed. And we both knew that we should have been eating noodles across the street for like $2. Like that was more on the budget. But we were like, we're going to go for a nice lunch. Maybe we were celebrating something. I don't even remember. But it did not feel celebratory. We were sitting outside. It was a beautiful day in Shanghai, which hardly happens. It was the spring. And my husband and I are sitting at a table, and he's across from me. And you could feel the stress between us. Like it was just really tense, and we were not really talking because we were both worried about the bill, honestly. And I look over Ron's right shoulder. I mean, I can see it clear as day. It was like one of these stake in the ground moments, pivotal moments in my life. And there were these 2 Chinese women, and they were dressed professionally, and they were sitting across from one another where I could see both of them. And they were drinking red wine, a nice glass of red wine, by the way. And they had this table full of tapas, huge spread. And they weren't even touching them. Like they were just sipping their wine and talking and enjoying one another and laughing and sitting back in their chair. And here I am with my husband, like, oh, when's that first dish going to get here? The dish gets there and we scarf it up, because we're so worried about time and the money and all this. And I sit and I watch them over Ron's shoulder. And I think, those women know something that I don't know. They are living a life that I'm not living. And I thought, the life path, the trajectory that I'm on right now is not going to get me to that amount of perceived freedom, both time freedom and financial freedom. Okay. I mean, I could not have afforded that glass of wine if my life depended on it. And I thought, I have to do something differently. Okay. So we pay for the bill. We kind of do like this quick mwah, kiss goodbye, super stressed. He goes off, I go off. And that night, I called the woman who introduced me to this gut product. And I said, all right, I'm in. What do I need to do? I said, I have so much to learn, but I think that this industry is what will give me what I'm looking for, the time freedom and the financial freedom and the choices, the empowerment that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's when we started our journey with Isagenix.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So from there, what we did was I side hustled it. So I was still working at this point. I think I was working maybe 3/4 time. And I just side hustled it every lunch break, every Saturday, every evening. I woke up early in the mornings. You know, if you're going to build something that matters, if you're going to build a business that becomes lucrative, you have to sacrifice, right? So I knew that any amount of time that I could put into my own business would buy me the financial freedom to eventually be able to quit. Okay. So Isagenix, at that time, we were getting products from Hong Kong. China was not an open market. It is very difficult to register a legal network marketing business in China. They're very protective. So Isagenix said, we're coming into China. We're coming into China. I build my side revenue up to a point where I can quit my marketing job at the school. I quit my job. Super excited, coming into China. I'm building my customer base. I'm working with certain partners and distribution channels. And Isagenix decides that they're no longer going to pursue products into China.
Ooh.
And I was devastated. I had quit my job, to pursue this. And while I could have built in the X amount of markets that Isagenix did have globally, I want to touch people locally. I want to impact people where I am, and shipping out of Hong Kong was no longer working. And I was broken because I had gotten a taste of freedom, just a taste, and I really felt like I cannot go back and work for somebody else anymore. Like, I will be an awful employee because I had gotten this tiny little taste of freedom.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, clearly network marketing doesn't work. See, it doesn't work, right? Didn't work for me. I feel burned. I feel hurt, and of course, none of this is Isagenix's fault. This is just me. This is my, my perception. And I said, well, all right, well, I'm not going back to work for someone else. So I'm going to create a podcast. That is when it was another pivotal moment. We moved houses. At this point, we've got the 2 daughters. I think I'm pregnant with the 3rd. And we would have barbecues at our house every Friday night. And it was summer. So everyone would come, bring their own meat. We would just barbecue and have sides. And it was wonderful. And at one of this attracted a lot of newcomers, because people, when they come to Shanghai in the summer, there's nobody there. There was no life. So people would ask all the time, like, why do you guys love your life in China so much? And I thought, you know what? I have a lot to give in this arena, because I do love living abroad and I loved my life in China. And so the podcast was called Limitless Laowai, and Laowai meaning foreigner in Mandarin. And it was really designed to help people land a little bit softer in China. And so I interviewed executives and moms and dads and educators and students and entrepreneurs about what life was really like in China. And I loved it. Jen, we did like 400 some odd podcasts in a number of years. And there I was building a podcast, and I was just thinking about all of the skill sets that I had unwittingly developed throughout my career over time.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, man, when I needed to build a website, guess what? I could build a website in about an hour, and I was learning this podcasting skill, which is a skill. and you get better at asking questions and developing a story and finding connection points over time. Yeah, you know this.
Yeah.
So I built out the podcast, and the way that we monetized was with advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So about a year and a half in to podcasting, my friend Victoria called me up and said, "Hey, um, I have something I think that will help with your postpartum issues." So after the birth of my second daughter, I experienced incredible sadness um, after delivery. I want to stay compliant. I don't even know if we can say like medical terms, but you got your guests understand what I'm saying, right? And
Yes.
to the point where I called Ron home once because I was about to hurt myself. I was about to commit suicide. Let's just put it. Let's just call it as it is. It's postpartum depression. Yeah, yeah. And it's real and it's chemical and it's and women don't talk about it because there's a lot of shame and a lot of um, we could have a whole podcast on this, but um, it's real. And we were in China at the time. We were still in Shanghai at the time after the birth of my second daughter, and there were no good support options
Yeah.
for it. And so I just
So
suffered through it.
so let alone the depression that you had for postpartum, but also the gut issue because that's after your second daughter.
Mhm.
So you had
Yep.
these two
Well,
things happening at the same time.
and gut and brain connection is real. And so the gut issues were feeding the emotional mental issues. And so it was really, really, really rough, which is why I think that first product that helped me so tremendously, it wasn't just my gut. I mean, it was my whole transformation of my body that was so powerful. So I call Ron home one day, and I just said, I can't, I need you home. And that was kind of the breaking point. And through incredible community support, we were able to work through it. And with this, uh, the supplement support, right? Getting my body back into balance, we were able to work through it. So after when I got pregnant with my third daughter, my friend Victoria obviously had walked that journey with me. She was the one that introduced me actually to the other products. Both of us were still using them daily. They were still a part of our wellness routine. We just weren't building the business anymore. So Victoria calls and says, "Hey, I found something for that might help with the postpartum of this daughter you're having," because I was pregnant again. And I was all ears. I was like, "What is it?" And she says to me, she says, "Essential oils," all excited. And I was on the phone with her, and I think my eyes rolled back into like the center of my brain. And I was like, "What?" Like, I was like, "The things that make your house smell good?" I mean, I just was like, "You've got to be kidding me?" And she's like, "No, no, no. These are different. These are different." And she walked me through a user case with her own daughter. She also has an adoptive daughter who has a blood disorder. And these oils were changing some numbers in her blood and like for the better. And I was like, "Whoa, all right." I said, "Listen, either you don't know anything about postpartum or I don't know anything about essential oils, but I'm willing to take a chance." And I got started with the oils. So I got started with my first kit of oils. Again, not at all thinking about the business because remember, I was burned. Like I was never going to build a network marketing business again.
Right.
And but I also knew that network marketing companies have the best products. Like they
Mhm.
just have the best products, and they have products that use a social selling model because they have stories to tell. They're unique products in the marketplace. And if you put them on a shelf at Walmart, no one's going to buy them, because they don't have the 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 raving fan behind it.
Right.
So I get started with my oils, and I was like a closet user, Jen. I was pregnant, right? So you can use these when you're pregnant, which I was amazed about. But I would be like feeling nauseous and I'd get a drop and I'd be sniffing it like, but like not letting anybody see. And I was thinking I was crazy because I had no use I had never really used like natural products before. I was not your average avatar here. I was like embarrassed, but they were working. So I kept using them, used them when I had the baby and after I had the baby. And so this is like 10 months later. Victoria is building her doTERRA business. And I am like, "Nope, I'm done." She's like, "Okay." that's fine. I said, I've got this podcasting thing. It's lucrative. I've got contracts. It's awesome. And I was like, she's like, okay, I respect that. She's like, but use the products because they're awesome. Use the products. 10 months later, I have the baby, use the products, and experience radically different results. Okay.
Mm.
And 4 months after Margie was born, there was an expat mama of 3, just like me at the time, in Shanghai who committed suicide. And it turned out that she was suffering from postpartum. And she had her 3 children at home, and she jumped from her 21-story building. And I didn't know her personally, but in any expat environment, these things hit really hard. And it hit me incredibly hard because 3 years prior, that could have easily been me. So I'm lying in bed one night and I was sharing with my husband about this woman. And I just was like, her children, like I was 4 months after Margie Rose was born. Our kids were like the same age. And I just said, babe, I said, I have been so selfish. I said, because if anybody 3 years ago when I was suffering, we weren't just struggling, I was suffering. I said, if anybody had come to me and said, you know what, I've got this oil and I don't know if it's going to work for you, but here, give it a try. Let's see if it helps with the emotional, turmoil that you're in. I would have done anything, Jen. Like I would have gone to the moon and back if it meant that I was no longer suffering and impacting the life and the health of my family, And I said, here I am keeping this incredible gift to myself because I'm afraid what people are going to think of me. And I'm afraid that people are thinking that are going to think that I'm crazy or trying to sell them something or, whatever I was afraid of at the time. And I said, and a woman is dead. And what if I could help somebody, and I said, I gotta do this. I've got to start sharing these essential oils. And so I did. And I started to just invite everyone over. I knew nothing except for I knew what was working for my family.
I remember you had those sessions, right? You would have like these gatherings where you were doing like talks and workshops on the oils.
That's right. And I knew nothing at the time. I just was super excited and I had to get out of my own way, so that I could be a conduit for other people to just know about these things. They didn't have to choose it, but I was not going to stand in the way. I couldn't go to sleep at night anymore knowing that I wasn't sharing something that I loved and that was really working. So I started to build a business. And I was building an essential oil business and podcasting, okay? Because podcasting was still bringing in a lot of money, but I thought that having a podcast and being my own boss would give me the freedom that I wanted. But it turned out I had a boss. It was me and I didn't like her. I just was like, because I couldn't scale it. If it wasn't me at the microphone, my business wasn't growing.
Yeah, because it was you. You were
it was me. Yeah. And we brought on Pete later on, but still, I mean, I had
Pete
no way to, huh?
Pete Wing?
No, another Pete. I know, no. Pete Wing, if you're listening, we miss you, friend. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send this episode to it.
There you go. You got a cameo, Pete. No, another dear friend of mine who was excellent at podcasting.
Sorry.
And took over a lot when I was pregnant. Yes, other friend Pete. But still, I couldn't scale it. I could only produce so many shows, and only sell so much advertising. I could not scale. So if you think about 2 timelines, right? Victoria invites me to build a doTERRA business with her. Okay. I say no. I use the products for 10 months. Baby's born 4 months later. So now we're 14 months in. I have not started my doTERRA business yet. I just started 14 months in. And 3 months later, all of my advertisers pull. All of their contracts all their contracts finish and nobody re-ups. So then my podcast revenue is down to 0. Whereas my friend who has built her doTERRA business in those 14 months, 16 months, is now making 6 figures a year.
Why
Residual income.
why did the advertisers pull? Like, did you like chase up after them to find out why they weren't interested in renewing their contracts?
Because the numbers showed that because we were topical, if you were a mom, you would go back to episode 5 and listen to the mom. You weren't necessarily only interested in today's episode. We
Right.
launched 6 a week, 5 a week. I mean,
Wow.
we launched a lot of episodes. Yeah. So, and
Did you have a
their
team
message
that
was in
edited
there.
for you as well? Like, you had a
I
team
had
that
a
edited
team.
for you?
I had my editor was in Germany. He was
Wow.
incredible. Yeah, I loved him. Um, and so they found that their message was in, and my podcast, it was expensive, and so they were going to use that revenue or the marketing income elsewhere. So to each their own, right? Like, it made sense to me from a business standpoint, but then all of a sudden I have 0.
Mm.
And I thought, man, I need to revisit the power of residual income and setting up a business that pays you while you're sleeping, right? So I dug in after that. After all of my revenue dried up, to me, it was God saying, all right, come on, knocking me on the head, being like, you've got to get out of your way. Like, there are so many people that you're meant to impact. And I jumped in.
All the signs were there too. All the
Yeah,
all the signs
it
were there.
really was. Let me take away all your money so that you see. Exactly, right?
But it's funny that in hindsight. Sorry, I know I'm cutting you off here. But when you just think about going all the way back to like when you first started introing yourself and what you were saying. If I may, high achiever. You've always been very like type A, like high achiever. And so even just illustrating what you've kind of the path you've walked thus far, it's a lot of like go, go, go. I want to be here. But
Mhm.
then I fall, right? And it's like, but then it's like, got to pick up again. And it's like, why is this happening to me? Like, this is not how I had planned it out in my head. It's not supposed to
Right.
go this direction. It's supposed to go this direction. And I feel like your energy has always been more like that. Like, just, so it's interesting to hear you say all this, because at the same time, I do want to ask you, like, of a lot of these emotional roller coasters you've
Yeah.
been through. Um, Obviously, Ron's been a great support network. Your community in Shanghai, you were mentioning earlier, was a great support network. What I found interesting in what you were saying earlier too was that for you, it was actually these products that really
Mm.
helped heal you. Like as you've done a lot of stories too with other people, and you usually hear different variations of how people heal themselves, right? Or how they reinvent themselves, or how they come out from the darkness. So it was very interesting for me just now to hear you say that, twice already, right, has been these
Mhm.
products. And it's almost like I said earlier, it's like a sign. So
Yeah.
I want you to finish your story, obviously, but I did also want to ask you emotionally
Mhm.
what helped and what got you through, like you said earlier, like waking up every morning and having to juggle like being a wife and a mother and an entrepreneur and serving others, as you said earlier too, right? You felt like you had a lot to give to others based on your own
Yeah.
experiences as well.
Yeah. That's such a great question. I was sitting with a friend, Sarah. We were in Starbucks late one night in Shanghai, and I get this download. I can't really describe it other than this like intense knowing of my purpose in life, like my mission in life. And it was so powerful. I'm sitting there and I'm crying in Starbucks, going, whoa, like this has never made more sense to me. And my mission is to unlock freedom and possibility into people's lives. okay, to unlock freedom and possibility. And so whenever I start to feel down, which does happen as an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, I mean, it is like an incredible roller coaster, right? Um, Whenever I start to feel down, I go back to my mission and I remind myself that me either limiting myself or feeling bad about where I am or allowing my emotions to take over and spiral, right? That directly hinders me from unlocking freedom and possibility into people's lives. So I think that for me has been, it was another moment, right? Another very powerful moment that I keep going back to. And I think about everything I've done, the podcast, right? Unlocking freedom and possibility for people. Like, come, let's let China be a wonderful place for you and your family if you have a family, right? The businesses that I've run, my work that I've done, everything has had this thread of helping people get unstuck and helping them see their potential and then finding creative ways to draw out that potential so that they can bring their best to the world. So that's how I manage. Of course, essential oils, aromatherapy, the products are fabulous and the science behind it. I mean, we can go all day. Again, the science behind using aromas to retrain and using neuro tools to retrain your thought processes. And, there's a lot of mental work and mindset work that I do because you can't get up every day and allow your emotions to get the best of you. You can't. And actually accomplish your mission. So practically speaking, this is what I teach and train my partners. We all have, if you think about like a sine curve, right? Like the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs. And we can have really high highs and really low lows. And some people think that the high highs serve you, but they don't. Right? Someone says yes to a business opportunity. They want to partner with you. You get super excited. That a yes is nothing. It's all about, does somebody show up and do the work? So what I teach my organization is to lower the ceiling and raise the basement of our emotions, right? So what that looks like is doing your best and doing whatever it takes to keep your emotions in check, not getting super excited about a lot of things, not getting super down about a lot of things, just allowing you to go throughout your day and do your job.
Yeah.
Do your work, get to work. And if your high highs and your low lows prevent you from doing your work and reaching out and feeling confident about your opportunity, then you've got to lower the ceiling and raise the basement so you can function.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what I teach my daughters. I now have 4 daughters. So we touched on that. Our last daughter came to our family through adoption, and her medical concerns or her medical needs are intense. She was born with half of a heart. She has a congenital heart disease called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Basically, the left heart did not develop in utero. And so this lowering the ceiling and raising the basement is not just about business. She had an open heart surgery in Shanghai right before the pandemic, December of 2019. How blessed was that situation? I can't even tell you. But in order to function through that, I had to lower my ceiling and raise my basement, right? Like it's this window that we all have to find. And the window I think looks different for everybody, but it's a window that we have to find where we can still process through emotion, but not allow it to take us out.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Totally. I feel like that's one of your quotes I'm going to pull out.
There you go. Lower the ceiling, raise the basement,
Yeah.
And anyone who has their own business, think about you, Jen. Like, I don't know how it was for you when you first got started with the podcast, but when podcast guests would say yes to me, I'd be so excited and I'd be super high. And then, if they cancel, I'd be super low. And you can't take the emotional trauma that we give ourselves, and still function as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And the reality is when you're an employee, you don't get to take your emotion to work, right? You deal with it, you suck it up, you still do your job, and you come home and you process it. And as an entrepreneur, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is not treating your business like a proper business and not treating yourself as the CEO of a proper business. Right?
Spot on. I feel like I want to make sure we cover some more things before we wrap up. This could keep going on. I want you to just finish that storyline of like you then helped Victoria. You then 14 months into
Yes.
you know, the podcast dropping zero, and then you recalibrated and said, "All right, I'm in. I need to help people with essential oils, doTERRA specifically."
Okay, perfect.
And then how from there you guys landed in Mexico.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you loved your life in
I'll go
China.
faster.
You told us just, you know, like earlier, you're like, we love China so much. We love the community we built. At one point I was like, maybe we should, you know, say the podcast in 中文，我们用中文来聊。
中文来讲。
But you know, so just, yes, to where you are today, right? Because obviously, once you said yes to doing doTERRA and saying, I'm going to turn this business into my business, it took you much further than you probably anticipated, right? Like,
yeah,
did you think you were going to end up in Mexico during the pandemic? Yeah.
No, I did not. Okay, so I started doTERRA and I made the decision to be fearless and to put what anyone else thought of me. No one else was paying my bills. I don't care what anyone else thinks of me, right? This was my opportunity to step into my potential, and I made that decision. And then you have to make that decision day in and day out. Whenever you're doing something that is against the grain, and this could be any business, right? You have to make the decision to, you know, put on your duck suit, let everything else roll off your back, you know, and that's a decision you make daily. So I made that decision and I started to build my organization. And then, oh gosh, my timing. Let's see. So I had my daughter. Yeah. Then Grace came home about 6 months into building my doTERRA business, kind of more full-time-ish, part-time, full-time. And then my health started to decline. And my health started to decline and decline and decline in the stress of adoption and having a sick kid. And all of it just started to crumble. Year and a half later, we finalize the adoption. And I'm working as much as I can, but my health is really an issue at this point. And I'm going to doctors and no one's figuring out anything. And people were like, it's stress. It's stress. You're in a stressful situation. It's like, yeah, I am, but something's wrong, right? So my husband in 2018 gets a new job in the south of China in Shenzhen. And it was fabulous because I could just take my business with me, right? Ooh, new market. Great. So I still continue to support Shanghai. My organization is in about 40 different countries. So I could do my work from anywhere, right? Supporting my team from anywhere. I move to Shenzhen and I am in bed for the first 6 months. I mean, could not function. And I finally was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in January of 2019. And all of a sudden, everything makes sense, right? I basically, through my podcasting season, just buried myself, just drove myself into the ground. And my body took the brunt.
Which diagnosis were you given?
Hashimoto's.
Okay.
Which is a thyroid autoimmune disease. And started then in January of 19 to use all the tools I had, right? Which were, of course, my oils, but also diet and lifestyle to heal. And I hired a business coach to hold me accountable to working. I was working 3 hours a day. That was my max. And trying to be, you know, as productive as humanly possible, doing the right things in those 3 hours. It's really hard for me. You know, you've pinpointed me as a type A hard worker. Like, I love working. I love it. I love what I do. And it's really hard when I'm in seasons of chronic pain or chronic illness and I can't work as much as I want. I can't be as productive as I want. So moved to Shenzhen. Took me about 2 years to really get my health back in order. I mean, if you damage yourself and your body like I did, like it's constant. Everything I do today is to make sure that I'm running as best as humanly possible. And I still have afternoons where I'm like, whoa, I'm done. I'm going to bed. Like once you have an autoimmune, you deal with it. It lifestyle changes. So we go through COVID. COVID hits China in 2020, January. We've got lockdown for a couple months. It was fine, really. I mean, it was where we were, it was totally fine. We were like, ooh, this is new. We get to spend so much time together. I can still do my business online. Like, this is awesome. And then March, April, May, kids are online. May, my kids go back to school. At least the oldest one did. And then May was when like the rest of the world was going crazy with COVID. And so as we were kind of coming out of it, the rest of the world was shutting down. And all of the school year, 2020 to 2021, my kids were in school. And that was not happening anywhere else in the world except for China. So we really felt like, wow, we dodged a bullet with this because there were so many people that had left China when it had first hit, right? Then all of a sudden we're feeling like, wow, China's the safest place to be at that time. And then we kind of got another drop. And it was, okay, this is kind of hard to explain, but if you haven't lived in this situation, but I'll explain it anyway, and you guys can take, what you want from it. At one point, there was talk about war, okay, between a couple different countries, China being one of them. And you don't want to be an expat in any country when there's war, right? So then my husband and I were thinking, okay, we're going to make a go bag with like all of our passports and all the important documents. And, just in case we need to like get up really quickly and go. Grace at that time was still on a Chinese passport. She hadn't been able to get her documents. Like after adoption, it was really crazy. And so she couldn't just leave China. We couldn't actually just get up and go. We were stuck. We had to go to the US consulate, get a visa and her Chinese passport. Like it took time, right? So then we were like, well, the go bag is kind of a moot point because we can't actually go.
Leave. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Ron and I were like, well, if we're even considering a go bag, like, what are we doing?
Let's just go.
Like, if it's going to take time, like at what point do you go? And then we can talk a little bit about, I don't want to get the podcast censored, but, at the time, China was rolling out inoculations, we'll call it that, for the vaccine. And my daughter having half a heart, it was not advised for her to take this inoculation, particular one. And I did not feel comfortable with my autoimmune and my health issues. Like it's my health is rickety. Again, I had to work out really hard and I didn't want to introduce something that was an unknown factor. So,
and you're not alone. There are a lot of people who also have, Yeah.
And my husband's job came down. The Education Bureau in our city said all staff and faculty need to get vaccinated or they have to leave. And we had to make the incredibly hard decision to leave. I mean, China was my home for 16 years. All of my girls were born there. It was everything that we knew, everything that we loved, but it was no longer the place that we knew and loved. And in 3 weeks' time, we got to the US consulate in Guangzhou, did all the visa stuff, left, and ended up in Mexico. Now, remember that tiny little city I lived in up in the Northeast with no other foreigners? All right.
Yes.
15 years ago, I was walking down the street and a white woman was coming towards me. And I was like, I think my first words to her were like, what are you doing here? Just in utter shock of like, what? Anyway, her name's Jenny. She's an American and she was traveling through China and she lives in our city here in Mexico. So I called Jenny and I just cried for 3 weeks. I mean, I just cried and cried and cried and cried. Like my ceiling was not raised. My low, like I was a mess. Okay. And I called Jenny and I said, how is life in Guanajuato? Like, what's it like? And I said, we need to move. And I think we want to move there. Like, I just want to go hide out in the mountains of Mexico for a little bit and let all this craziness pass. And then we can reevaluate. Right. So my husband had to retire, and I'm so grateful for the time that I've put into building my own network marketing business because we had the option, right? We can support my family of 6 with my income and then some. right? And then we can just continue to grow and grow and grow. Mexico's an open market. Fabulous. We'll just pick up our business and move it to Mexico. And this is that freedom and flexibility that the industry offers and promises, really, if you are willing to put the time and effort and treat your business like it's a real business. You can't be an amateur and get this amount of freedom. You can't side hustle it for too long. You can work around whatever. I worked around a pregnancy. I worked around an adoption. I worked around an open heart surgery. I worked around an international move, loads of health issues, but you still have to work. Right. And so here we are in Mexico. My husband is retired. He has joined me in helping build our business. And if I go back to that moment, that one moment at the tapas restaurant.
That pivotal moment was sitting there, looking at your husband, and then left and right of you were these two ladies.
Yes.
Sipping their red wine and not touching their food.
Yeah, not touching their food. I'm like, can I eat it? Because I'm starving and I can't afford to buy more, And I just go back and I'm like, that's the life we've built, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I just, was it hard? Yeah. Did it have moments? Absolutely. But it was worth every moment. And that's the life that, as a mom, I have 4 daughters, and I want nothing more than my children to find what they're passionate about and then pursue it with all their hearts. That's just like this burning desire in my soul. I don't want them to have to go and work for money to go do something to provide. There's nothing wrong with a job. I don't want to, some people, they love their work. They love the non-stress. They leave their work at work, and they come home and they live their life. And man, that works. And this world needs employees. The people that I want to talk to are those who are in an employee role who don't want to be there. Right? If you don't want to be there and you have this burning passion, you have this idea, I hope that our time together today just encouraged you that, when you see a quote unquote successful business or a quote unquote successful person, oh my gosh, are there years of pain and work and joy and growth and, all those things that make people who they are. And you could jump into that, you could do that. If I can do that, you can do that. And so I hope that, just sharing a couple of my moments today have, inspired you to be like, wow, I had a moment and I didn't act on it. Right. Or to be looking for those moments, look for those moments in your world. Yeah.
I think that was totally, you're a professional motivational speaker. So that was definitely, I'm done. We could cut it here now. We're finished. No, but you shared so many different storylines that like each one could be its own chapter. I think so. I'm going to give you an idea. Next phase, you should write a book. And then I also wanted to point out that I think Ron played such a pivotal role in being such a supportive spouse in this whole process, right? Like when you were saying you were very sick, he had to step up, and had to juggle all the things, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of stories within that as well. Next time, maybe we'll get Ron to come on.
Oh, please do. I am not super easy to be married to. We would have a fabulous conversation. Yeah.
No comment. No, just kidding. I just want to, before we wrap up, I usually ask my guests 2 things. So one is like, what is your 2 cents or words of wisdom? Which obviously one was the, lower your ceiling and raise your base. So that's one. And then the second one is what keeps you grounded besides your products that you use. So maybe, and when we did the Q&A piece a few years ago, I remember you saying like, your daily meditation practice or doing at least 30 minutes of yoga when you can get it in before the girls wake up. So if you could share that, or maybe like you have read books that really helped you. It could, if everyone's different, what works for them. Some people like to go out for long walks or take a long run. And yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I forgot the first question. So I'm going to start with what keeps me grounded first, if that's okay. And then you'll have to remind me.
Of course.
Every night. So he'll probably kill me for sharing this too. But for years, I've struggled with sleep. Okay. So, and sleep is so pivotal for anybody. But when you have an autoimmune disease, sleep is everything, right? It's all the time that your body heals. When we were in China, I started to sleep on my own in one of my girls' rooms, and my girls would all sleep with daddy. Okay. So loved it. Like he loves just being surrounded by his girls all the time. What we did when we moved here was every night I sleep with a different one of my daughters, and Ron takes the other three. Okay. And don't worry, people are like, is your marriage in danger? I'm like, okay, we're home all day together. All right. Like we're good. We're fine. So every night I get this snuggle, talk, grounding, mentoring, pouring in to my daughters in this like individualized, I really get to know you. You really get to know mommy sort of time. And I, to the best of my ability, block off my evening schedule to allow me to go and to lie with one of my girls. That I think is what keeps me remembering why I do this. You know, I build this business because it's a legacy business. You know, when I'm gone, I can will my doTERRA business to my children. You know, so the work that I'm doing now is for legacy. It's not for me. You know, it matters. You know, what I do now matters. But I work a lot. And so I don't want my girls to look back and say, well, mommy was always working, right? So I have, right when they get home, we've got a lunch hour together, and then that evening time. That's what keeps me grounded. What was your first question, Jen?
Words of wisdom, or your two cents. So people who are tuning in to this particular episode, who can relate to any of your storylines or the, I want that freedom, what would you say to them?
Well, I've got a lot. We won't go for long, but if you're considering network marketing, okay, there's a network marketing company that resonates with the mission and vision and culture of every single person on this planet, right? Don't discount the industry because of what you've heard. Don't discount the industry because of what your friend posts on whatever social media platform, right? Don't discount the industry because you've been bombarded by someone who was an amateur and wasn't doing it well, right? If you have a desire to help people and you love teaching and mentoring, look into the industry and then find the company with the products that you can really get behind. You know, do yourself the favor of taking down your walls, because it's game changing for the people who really dive in. That's the first word of wisdom in terms of the industry. The second thing is, remember, my mission is to unlock freedom and possibility, right? So I really get upset when people feel blocked. You know, I mean, my team tells me that I can help them find 100 ways out of a paper bag. And it's true. Like it's a core competency. It's a skill set that I do, unconsciously, subconsciously. So if you feel stuck, if you want something different, if you have a dream and a goal and have a burning desire to change your life, then do what it takes to go after it. Because life is too short. My husband was listening to a podcast and he said that the most valuable place on earth is the graveyard because of all of the potential that lays buried within.
Oh.
And I just thought, wow, how many books were unwritten? How many podcasts not started? How many businesses not started? How many families not started? Right? Because of fear or whatever, whatever is holding you back.
Yeah.
Don't let that be your story, because you have something that you're meant to give to the world.
So nicely put.
I leave you speechless. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna put all your links in the episode resources so people can
Sure.
find you. And if they're interested in learning more about doTERRA and how they can get on the program, they can reach out to you as well. And yeah, so I just want to thank you so much for this was supposed to happen a year ago actually, and then because then you were moving and all and everything you just described. So I'm so glad we found time to do it today. And yeah, well, I'm very excited to see what other things unfold for you guys, and people should follow on social media if they're interested in seeing your stories happen as they go in real time.
Well, I certainly enjoyed our time together. I did not intend to go over an hour. So
no, that's okay. I kind of anticipated this, like I said earlier. So it's all good.
We'll be 30 minutes. Easy.
No. Not with Allymona, no. But thank you so much again for your time today.
It was a pleasure. I so appreciate your time and your expertise. You are really good at this. And I'm so grateful that I'm sure you've gotten over your fears and, your stuff to be able to produce this for the world. So thank you, Jenn. It was a pleasure.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.